The Utah Mammoth have been one of the surprise teams in the NHL so far this season. Robyn Leano of Locked On Mammoth joins us to talk about their fast start and whether or not they are for real. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Mammoth, Robyn Leano. And Robyn, pretty impressive start, Sunday's loss notwithstanding, for the Utah Mammoth, certainly exceeding expectations. What's been the big difference in this team that they've made so much progress so far this year?
Yeah, a lot of it, Gil, actually really goes with, I feel like this team comes and goes with how the top six is feeling. And the top six is, on paper, if you look at it, it's a pretty lethal top six. I mean, the top line, you're headed by Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller, and Barrett Hayton, followed by different nicknames, but Young Guns line, the Kid line, or the Pickup line, and JJ Peterka, Dylan Gunther, and Logan Cooley. I said it pretty much on another show or on a quick, one of those shorts after a game. As long as those top six, especially the pickup line, is staying hot, but this team will be hot as well. That they will just continue to be that. And it shows when they put the pressure up, when they play their game, when the top six does what they do best, this team is winning games.
What so far is your biggest concern about this team?
It's consistency. I have said this time and time again. Last year, the previous years with the Arizona regime, all of that, those you can discount, okay, rebuilding team, but we're still seeing the issue of inconsistency. We're enough where I still say that this team is consistently inconsistent, because I'll see they'll go through a 7-game stretch. They had a 7-game win streak earlier this season, and then now they dropped 3 of their last 4 games, which to me, I'm like, okay, that's not okay. You can't do that. You have to figure out a way to win these games. You have to figure out the way to not let other teams get past you and play your game consistently. Don't let others push you around. This team is still figuring that out. They're still figuring it out and finding where their confidence lies within that. And once they do, I feel like they'll be fine. But to me, it's like, I got to see it to believe it. I got to see what they can string together more than just like a 5, 6, 7 game period of good, and then followed by a 5, 6, 7 game period of bad. I need to see more than that.
You talked about the top 6. Are you concerned about the bottom 6 and their productivity?
At first I was. The last couple of games, I saw that they're starting to put a little bit more effort in there. I seen Jack McBain and Michael Carcone are doing a lot more to finally get in there. I feel like Tom and I are pretty vocal of Liam O'Brien, where even though he might not be the best player in the ice, I feel like he brings a different kind of value to the team. He brings the energy. He brings the grit. He's what you want on the team. Those intangibles that everyone loves to talk about, right? But other than that, you're right. There, that question is, there still is a little bit of gaps that I want to see. Kevin Stenlund took a little bit of time to wake up to kind of become what he was brought in to do, which is to be a face-off specialist. And I want to see a little bit more. Brandon Tanev is doing fine. I have not very many complaints, but I feel like there still needs to be a more cohesive unit from top to bottom. Top 6 is great in most nights and the last few games, But bottom six, I feel like once they can string together some more consistency as well, this team could also be great.
Give me one player who you feel has made the biggest jump forward this season.
Biggest jump forward. I mean, I'll have to say that I'm not even sure if it's saying jump forward, but like I feel like it's been a highlight to so many players. Is Nick Schmaltz, because Nick Schmaltz has had good years and he's had bad years, right? Last year was a bad year and he finally bounced back. And I feel like he's hot. He's been red hot. Last couple of games, maybe, I'm looking at those last couple of games and they're fresh in my memory. So I'm like, well, those games I'm going to ignore because I want to ignore those games. But he's been hot. I mean, he had a hat trick earlier this season. And he was on a point streak for a minute there, and you're like, okay, is this kid potentially not even? I say kid because he's actually not a kid anymore. He's in his late 20s at this point, but is he on track for a 90-point season? Like, oh my god, which now he's not, but he's on a contract year, and I feel like he deserves that. He deserves to finally get that kind of a good year, and I'm glad he's getting there. But it was a surprise. I did not expect him to jump out that quickly.
How about the goaltending? Talk to me about what you see there and how confident are you in this duo?
Yeah, I'm seeing some inconsistencies, as I mentioned before, as the unit with the rest of them. But I feel like Krove Melka and Vitek Vanacek are they're a fine duo. They're a fine tandem. I feel like they get the job done, and for the most part, they don't have they rarely drop big flops. There are still some games in there where I scratch their head and I'm like, these were bad games for those goaltenders. But I feel like those are rare now at this point. I feel like they're finding a tandem that works for them, that they're not giving excuses for one of them to lose their spot. It is a 1A, 1B situation here versus a true starter versus true backup situation. I feel like they're getting to that point. It's interesting because Tom made a prediction preseason that Vanacek would eventually become the starting goaltender. I don't think that we're going to get there. I don't think that Veggie is doing poor enough to get to that, but I feel like Vanacek is doing well enough that he's earned some extra minutes in there. And we're seeing him more, I think, especially because of these back-to-backs, but all in all, Veggie is still the starter. He's still the one who's getting the bulk of these minutes. He's still the one getting the bulk of the starts.
All right, we're a month into the season. This team is fighting for playoff spot. What is your biggest concern, and what are the keys to sustaining this fast start?
Yeah, I mean, I told you about the top six, and I told you about the pickup line, as Tom and I like to call them. That's our nickname for them, the pickup line. And as long as they're always scoring, because that's a lethal unit. It's a young group of Gunther, Cooley, Peterka. If they stay hot, then the team will stay hot. But the problem is they're young. They're going to be prone to those inconsistencies a lot more. And I feel like there needs to be a little bit more maturity across the board to be able to avoid those kind of issues and avoid the all of a sudden where we make the jokes like, hey, where are they? I did they're missing on the milk carton kind of thing. Like we don't want that to happen, because all of a sudden when they get cold and then the rest of the team gets cold and it feels like they lose their confidence. And I feel like that's the issue that I feel like this team needs to fix to get back to be a formidable playoff team. They need to have that confidence back to be able to not lose their confidence and not lose their consistency when they're losing these string games. They need to get back and play their game and what they do best.
All right, Robyn, it's going to be an exciting season in Salt Lake City. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Yeah, you can find us just about everywhere on social media. You can primarily active over on Twitter/X at Locked On Mammoth. That's at Locked On Mammoth. You can find me personally at Robyn_Leano. Also active, there. I usually respond to most of my listeners, within 24 hours, sometimes a little bit later, but I'm usually pretty quick about it. You can find Tom as well on Twitter/X at Callahan on air. He's also on Blue Sky. That's where he's more active, over at Tom Talks.
All right, Robyn, thank you so much.
Of course.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, place that first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today.